Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 977, Thursday, December the 5th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, today is just one of those days that there is so much news, there is no way I can cover it all. So I just checked off my list and took the stories I thought were most important, and those are the ones that I'll try to get to today. If tomorrow's a slow day, maybe I can pick up some of those other stories. But for now, let's just get to the news of the day because time is of the essence, and we don't have much of it. Okay, the two really big takeaways from the Penguins' first day of hearings in the Inquisition redo. Well, I think the first big takeaway was the nasty, snooty, liberal magpie named Pamela Karlan attacking the president's son, Barrett. Now, truly, she's a Trump hater. In fact, she's probably very bitter because, of course, she donated big time to Hillary Clinton, Obama, and a bunch of Democrats. But more importantly, it was reported that she was on the short list for the Rotten Reverend Clinton to be a possible Supreme Court nominee. And, of course, once the Rotten Reverend lost, there went any chance that she had of being an appointee for the Supreme Court. And she will never, ever, ever see that happen now, because Trump is going to be reelected in 2024, and he's going to appoint at least one, probably two more justices, and they will be, of course, originalist judges, which means she has no shot. In fact, by the time Trump leaves office in 2024, we may be looking at a 7-2 court, and that's why these people are going insane, because they know that they can't get legislation passed because their ideas are not very popular, and so they have to use the courts. And you give Trump 8 years, and he will go from the Supreme Court all the way down to the lowest level court there is, and then at the end of his second term in 2024, we will have a whole country full of originalist judges at all levels, including the Fifth Circuit. So I would say that the thing that we're going to remember most from this day of hearings is going to be how this nutty, nasty, snooty, liberal, magpie lawyer from academia tried to smear the president's son. Was forced to apologize for it. I would say that the second takeaway from this is that what we got from what Nadler basically presented, which was given to him by the bug-eyed fool Adam Schiff, is 300 pages of bullshit. Bullshit. No evidence, no facts. Just all the testimony we got from the last witnesses that we've all heard from now, but just instead of telling us that these are opinions of these people, trying to dress them up as facts and evidence. But it's all a lie. It's all bullshit. There was no facts and there are no evidence. It's the same recycled, remanufactured crap we got from Vindman and all these other characters that we just saw paraded out over the last 2 or 3 weeks. 300 pages of bullshit and a attack on the president's son. That is the two big takeaways from the Penguins' first day in the Inquisition redo. Fortunately, Jim Jordan destroyed the old magpie, and he put her in a situation where she was talking about complaining earlier about being taken out of context, which is exactly what she was doing to Trump. And he burned her on it and made her look stupid, because these people who claim to be so smart from academia, every damn one of them, dumber than a doorknob. I'll be honest with you people, and I'm not saying, that educated people with college degrees are a bunch of dummies. I have 2 college degrees. I don't think I'm a dummy. I'm just an average guy. But I know an awful lot of people, and I'll be honest with you, some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life are people who didn't even finish high school. And some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life have got more damn PhD and stuff after their name than I've ever seen. And most of those people spend their entire life in school with tons of college debt. They never ever stop going for that master's, then that PhD, then another PhD, then this and that. They spend their whole life with their nose poked in books, reading a bunch of philosophy and theory. But if they had a flat tire on the side of the road, they'd be screwed. Probably couldn't fix a flat tire. They couldn't catch a fish. They couldn't. If you sent these people out in the woods for 3 days, they'd be dead. Could not even survive. And I know many of you know this is true. This is very true. These people are what I call educated idiots. Highly educated idiots. And we just saw the spectacle in the Penguins' hearings. 3 of them. The only one that seemed to have a lick of sense in his head was Jonathan Turley. And he's a Democrat. But yes, Jim Jordan destroyed the old magpie. Matt Gaetz destroyed the old magpie. Especially, he had all 4 of them sitting there, and at some point in his questioning, he said, okay, there is not one witness that has knowledge of a single fact in the Schiff report. He asked if any of them had any fact, if any of them could be a fact witness, could offer any facts of anything, and not a single one of them could. It was a day of wasted time, wasted taxpayer money, and just another episode in the clown show featuring the world's biggest clown, the Penguin. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. I've been watching politics for a very long time. I've been through the Kennedy assassinations, Robert and John, Martin Luther King, the civil rights stuff in the 60s, the Vietnam War, Watergate. I've been through the whole thing, going all the way back to the 60s. I have never in my life seen it this bad. This is unprecedented. We are in uncharted waters. The crazies have taken over the, it's like they escaped out of the insane asylum, and they're now running the Congress, and they've infiltrated the bureaucracies, academia, banking, you name it. They seem to have infiltrated everything, and now they practically run the damn country. And it's very late in the game, and people are just now waking up to it. It's a big, big problem. But I'm sure you all know that. That's probably why you watch these videos. In fact, it was so bad that even the Penguin himself and Sheila Jackson Lee were caught snoozing during the hearings. Oh, my turn? That's right, the Penguin himself, chairman of his own committee of this whole shit show, is over there snoozing. Sheila Jackson Lee. Wake up. Whew. My God. Well, of course, I guess it's time for the Biden gaffe of the day. Now, this is crazy. This is literally crazy. That's right, Quid Pro Quo Joe saying that he would consider Kamala Legs in the Air Harris for vice president, but also that she would be very capable of being on the Supreme Court because she's so smart. Well, compared to Quid Pro Quo Joe, everybody's smart. Dumb and Dumber are geniuses compared to Biden and his kid. Put both of them together, you won't get double-digit IQ. My God. Can you imagine that? Kamala Harris on the Supreme Court. Fortunately, this will never happen because Quid Pro Quo Joe doesn't have a chance in this world. I mean, this guy is completely nuts. I'll be surprised if he makes it to the end of the year. I don't know how. Actually, the problem with this is that there's no one else. If you don't have Quid Pro Quo, what do you got? Commie Bernie and Liawatha? Andrew Yang? Tom Steyer? Where are you going to go? This is the only explanation for why Quid Pro Quo is still, Joe is still in the race. Because everyone else in the race with him is just as bad. But at least most of them are not senile. I mean, he's not even sane. I mean, these other guys are sane. They're just crazy. They're sane, but they're crazy. I mean, Biden meets the medical definition of he's not sane. The others are just Looney Tunes. Oh, my God. Well, we have the rotten Reverend Clinton. She went on Howard Stern. Probably not a good idea if you're the rotten Reverend Clinton to go on Howard Stern. But she did. She must be getting desperate. And of course, on Howard Stern, she said that she was very popular with the boys and that she dated a Greek god. Yes, she dated this guy who was like a Greek god, and she dumped him for Slick Willie. Yeah, that's right. She dumped the Greek god for Slick Willie, who was probably hitting everything on campus but her. Ask about being a lesbian. She said, never, 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 never even tempted. Think about the rotten Reverend Clinton in Clinton speak. He asked her if she'd ever entertained any type of a lesbian activity, because it's been rumored. Never, 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 never even been tempted. Didn't mean she didn't do it. And she wasn't tempted. She was all in. Well, you know, Yoko Ono wrote a book years ago, and she sticks to the story today, that she had a lesbian experience with the rotten Reverend Clinton. That's in her book. Yoko Ono and the rotten Reverend. And that would make sense. They both look like an armpit that eats. Have you seen any photos of the rotten Reverend Clinton back in the 60s? Have you seen any photos of the rotten Reverend Clinton back in the 60s? She's attracting all these men, including the Greek god. Go take a look at some photos from Hillary in the late 60s. I'm thinking that she probably is exaggerating. Or else she was the only woman on campus. She wasn't that attractive. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying not to be too insulting here, because I don't like to attack people on their physical looks or whatever. But in her case, go back and look at the photos, and you tell me, does this look like a type of person who you think would have had men falling all over her? I'll just leave it there. And as she was doing this appearance on Howard Stern, she breaks into her coughing fit. She broke into a coughing fit. It got so bad that she had to she kept trying to hit the button that cuts off her mic, but she wasn't getting to it, so you continued to hear her cough. And then when she stopped speaking and Stern was speaking, she continued coughing, not realizing that you could hear it through Stern's mic. So you could still hear her coughing. At one point, it got so bad that Stern offered her a cough drop, and she says, "I got one." I guess she didn't spit any green stuff up in a cup, and thank God she didn't pass out and have to be chucked into a Scooby van. I guess she made it out of there under her own power. But my God. What a mess. The rotten Reverend, she's waiting for that brokered convention. She's engineering it right now. Well, we got to see Trump bitch slap Macron yesterday. Today he got to bitch slap Trudeau. He said, yeah, Trudeau, he was asked about Trudeau and this comment that Trudeau made about him, being late, 40 minutes late because he had to do his media thing. And Trump's like, yeah, well, he's two-faced. I like him. He's a nice guy and everything. I like him, but he's two-faced. Trump doesn't care. That's what I love about Trump. He's just brutally honest. And if you think that that's not crazy enough for you, if you think that that's not crazy, listen to this one. Madame Botox, Nancy Pelosi, Madame Botox, is over in Spain at the Conference on Climate Change. And she says that we're still in the Paris Agreement. No, Trump took us out of the Paris Peace Accords, or the Paris Climate Accords, or Agreement, whatever it is. Yes, he took us out of that, Reverend. We're not in, Madame Botox, we are not in the Paris climate deal anymore. Not a part of it. Somebody better tell Madame Botox. My guess is she was drunker than a monkey as usual, and she still believes it. Or maybe she thinks that she's president, and that she can show up there and make the claim, and therefore it is so. But I'm pretty sure it ain't so. We ain't in the Paris Climate Agreement anymore. Somebody email Madame Botox and give her a wake-up call. Assuming she can still read the blurred words on her screen. After God knows how many bottles of scotch, she probably put down on her way there to Spain. Maybe she'll stay there. Be the best thing for everybody. Well, well, well. Just can't get enough of this guy. Once again, Washington Post, the mouthpiece for the CIA over at the Washington Post, Devlin Barrett, has written another disastrously comical almost story regarding the IG report, Durham's investigation, and Barr. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of paragraphs here. I could literally sit here and destroy line by line his entire article. I could. I just don't have time and I don't have the article in front of me. But I picked some paragraphs out of here so that I can just go through and point out a few of them to you, just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. When we're talking about Devlin Barrett, as I said yesterday, this guy is straight up, works for the CIA. He gets, I'm sure he's on their payroll. I mean, this guy this guy literally is CIA working at the Washington Post, running their propaganda from daylight till dark. And this entire article, just like all of his articles, what is his sources? People familiar with the investigation. People familiar with Mr. Barr's office. People familiar with Mr. Durham's investigation. People familiar. The people say, the people said, the people heard, the people... I mean, this guy cites nothing, ever. Never a source. It's always some anonymous source. Anonymous sources, the people say. This is what this guy does. He literally, and another thing he does, he will constantly put something at the top in the first two paragraphs of his stories and then be forced to rebut it at the end. He does it time and time again. He must let people read the headline, read two paragraphs and stop reading, which maybe they do. Maybe he's got some research that shows that from the CIA. So he writes this article that's published yesterday in the Washington Post, and the title, literally the title of the story is this: Barr's hand-picked prosecutor tells Inspector General he can't back up right-wing theory that the Russia case was U.S. intelligence coup. That's the title. Barr's hand-picked prosecutor tells Inspector General he can't back up right-wing theory that the Russia case was U.S. intelligence coup. Barr's hand-picked prosecutor. First of all, one thing that we know about Barr's hand-picked prosecutor, Mr. Durham, he don't talk. And especially to assholes like Devlin Barrett. This guy don't leak, and he don't talk. Nor does people on his team, or they get kicked off the team immediately. This guy does not leak or talk. So right away, we know this is bullshit. And how about that? The very first line, Barr's hand-picked prosecutor. Well, of course he's hand-picked. The Attorney General appoints a prosecutor. That kind of de facto makes him hand-picked. Did you ever hear, Devlin Barrett or any other left-wing nut in the swamp describe Mueller as Rodenstein's hand-picked prosecutor, McCabe's hand-picked prosecutor? Never use the term. Never use the term. Rodenstein's hand-picked prosecutor, Bob Mueller, blah, 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 blah. Never heard it. Not once. But every time you hear a story about Durham, it's Barr's hand-picked prosecutor. Did you ever hear the entire time Obama was in office, Obama's hand-picked Attorney General, Loretta Lynch? Obama's hand-picked Attorney General, Eric Holder, who once described him as Obama's wingman. Nope, you didn't hear it, because it didn't happen. Nor will you ever hear it, because that's not the way it works with freaking liars like this douchebag, Devlin Barrett. You suck, Mr. Barrett. You suck. I hate you. I hope you'll be held into account by Mr. Durham, because you're part of the plot, brother. Being a journalist does not give you the right to participate in a coup, Mr. Barrett. He writes, Horowitz contacted John Durham, who Barr tapped to lead a separate review of the 2016 probe into possible coordination between Trump campaign and Russia. The People said. Oh my God. Where do we even begin? Horowitz contacted John Durham, who Barr tapped to lead, get this, a separate review of the 2016 probe into possible coordination between Trump campaign and Russia. The People said. And the people he's talking about, people familiar with the matter. Well, Barr and Durham aren't talking to people. You know what I mean? Certainly anyone who would talk to Mr. Barrett or the CIA. But get this. Barr tapped him to lead a separate review of the 2016 probe into possible coordination between Trump campaign and Russia? That's not what he tapped Barr to do. That's already been done with Uncle Bob, the executioner, and he came up with nothing. Nothing. No, Barr tapped Durham to find out if the investigation into Trump was properly predicated. Trump was spied on. Barr said in a committee hearing, yes, there was spying. There was definitely spying on the Trump campaign. The question is, was it properly predicated? And I have appointed a U.S. prosecutor, Mr. Durham, to find out if that is the case, what the facts may be. Was it properly predicated? He is not looking into anything having to do with the Trump campaign coordinating with Russia. Not at all. He's looking to see if the coup was properly predicated. Mr. Barrett, and you know it, you lying son of a bitch. The People said. Not a single source in the entire story. He must use the phrase, people familiar with the matter, or the people said. That's all he ever uses. There's never any source. And we know that Barr and Durham don't talk. Especially Durham. He also says that the IG also contacted several U.S. intelligence agencies. Oh, yeah. I mean, my goodness. We certainly want to contact the people who are involved in the coup to see what they have to say. Several U.S. intelligence agencies. Who might that be? There's 17 of them that we know about. Which ones, Mr. Devlin? Which ones? You don't know. Because the entire thing, Mr. Barrett, is bullshit. You made this all up completely out of thin air. This entire story, Mr. Barrett, you created out of whole cloth, out of thin air. There's not a single fact here. Not a fact that can be verified by anybody. The People said. What an asshole. More. Among Horowitz's questions, whether a Maltese professor who interacted with a Trump campaign advisor was actually a U.S. intelligence asset deployed to ensnare the campaign. Interacting. Well, that's an interesting term to use. Interacting. Not exactly the term I would use for someone who walks up and drops propaganda down in someone's lap who wasn't even asking for it, wasn't expecting it, and didn't even want it. That's not interacting. That's not interacting. That's something else. That's planting dope on somebody so that someone else could find it later. It's planting dope, Mr. Barrett, like the dope you're planting here. You asshole. Let me straighten you out on this one too. Among Horowitz's questions, as if Horowitz is calling up the CIA. Yeah, do you guys know anything about that Maltese professor? Did you guys plant that guy in the campaign? Oh, I'm sure they're just going to say, yeah, that was us. Yeah, it was us. How about Mr. Halper? Did you forget about him, Mr. Barrett? Among Horowitz's questions, whether a Maltese professor who interacted with a Trump campaign advisor, and by the way, you spelled advisor wrong, Mr. Barrett. You misspelled advisor. It's not A-D-V-I-S-E-R. It's A-D-V-I-S-O-R. You're a freaking journalist. and you can't spell advisor. I loathe bad spelling, Mr. Barrett. Actually a U.S. intelligence asset. No one said he was a U.S. intelligence asset. Western intelligence asset. Or working for a private intelligence firm. There's many options here, and there's 17 intelligence agencies. Which one did you talk to, Mr. Barrett? I'm thinking Mr. Potato Head is your source. Maybe Mr. Potato Head wrote this for you. Campaign advisor was actually a U.S. intelligence asset deployed to ensnare the campaign. The people said. The people said. That whole line, you gotta just read that one more time. Among Horowitz's questions, whether a Maltese professor who interacted with the Trump campaign advisor was actually a U.S. intelligence asset deployed to ensnare the campaign, the people said. My God. If it wasn't so serious, it would be funny. But it's not funny, because it's about a coup, and much worse. But the intel agency said the professor was not among the assets. The people said. Oh my God, what a piece of shit journalism this is. And Durham informed Horowitz's office that his investigation had not produced any evidence that might contradict the Inspector General's findings on that point. Durham informed Horowitz's office that his investigation had not produced any evidence that might contradict the Inspector General's findings on that point, being that Mifsud wasn't a CIA agent. So wait a minute, they're talking to the CIA. They say, nope, ain't our guy, not our asset. And then they go back and say that Horowitz's office had contacted Durham's office, and Durham's office saying, yeah, we don't have any proof of Mifsud being a Western intelligence or a U.S. intelligence asset either. Oh, we don't have bullshit. Durham would never comment on such a thing in the middle of an investigation. Never. This is complete bullshit. No way. No way would Durham ever comment, especially to Devin Barrett of the Washington Post. Yeah, call John Durham up in the middle of his investigation, ask him about probably the most key person in the entire damn plot. And he says, yeah, Mifsud, who's this? Devlin? Barrett? Oh, yeah, from the Washington Post. Yeah, hey, let me get my notes. Yeah, yeah. Oh, we don't have anything on Mifsud. He's clean. He's good. We can't contradict the IG. Bullshit. You're being lied to, my friends, if you read the Washington Post story by Devlin Barrett. Total bullshit. How would they know? Durham informed Horowitz's office that his investigation had not produced any evidence that might contradict the Inspector General's findings on that point. How would they know? They haven't read the Inspector General's report. How would the people at Durham's office know? The report hasn't been released yet. This guy's an asshole, and he's dumb. Or he thinks his audience is dumb. Spokespeople for the Inspector General's office, Durham, and the Justice Department declined comment. So, here he is telling us that Durham informed Horowitz's office that his investigation had not produced any evidence, blah, 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 telling us all these people who've talked to these people, to ask these people and these people, and then he turns right around one paragraph later and says, spokespeople for the Inspector General's office, Durham's office, and the Justice Department have declined comment. Exactly, they always would decline comment. They would never comment in the middle of an investigation to an asshole like you, Mr. Barrett. Never! It is also unclear whether Durham has shared the entirety of his findings and evidence with the IG or merely answered a specific question. Of course he's not sharing his evidence with the Inspector General. He doesn't need to. He simply needs to tell the Attorney General, Mr. Barr, what he's finding, and then when Mr. Barr reads the IG report draft, he can say, uh-oh, my guy Durham has got some additional information that kind of contradicts this. Let me call Horowitz in and explain this for him so that he knows in his report not to draw a conclusion here, because there's still an ongoing investigation where there are more facts and evidence that have not yet been discovered, unearthed, or made public, and so we don't really know. That's the real truth of the issue here, Mr. Barrett. And if you were a half of a journalist, that's what you would be reporting. Total freaking bullshit. The entire article. Total smoke. There was not a single phone call made, not a single email sent. This dude literally sat down, probably with Mr. Potato Head, and pulled this out of his ass. What a bunch of bullshit. I'm really angry, in case you can't tell. I'm tired of this guy. Sick of this guy. Sick of him. The Washington Post has not reviewed Horowitz's report, even in draft form. And here he is admitting, Mr. Barrett, admitting that they, the Washington Post, have not reviewed the Horowitz report, even in its draft form. And then one paragraph later, what does he say? Horowitz's draft report concludes that political bias did not taint how the top FBI officials running the investigation handled the case. People familiar with the matter said. Here he is telling us that the Washington Post has not reviewed the Horowitz report, even in draft form, but one paragraph later, Horowitz's draft report concludes that political bias did not taint how top FBI officials running the investigation handled the case. People familiar with the matter said. This guy is an idiot! How could you read a story like this and not be as angry as I am? How can you read something like this? It's one contradiction after another, one piece of bullshit lie after another. And this gets printed in the Washington Post, and millions of people read it, unfortunately. And then they go on MSNBC and CNN and all the rest and report on this garbage. Report on it, as if it's fact. This is garbage. And Kleinsmith, they mentioned Kleinsmith. He was a low level. 3 times they mentioned him in this article, and all 3 times, Kleinsmith, a low level player. Low level player. Low level player. Low level player. Is that true? A low level player. Mr. Kleinsmith was an FBI lawyer assigned to the Mueller probe. He was also on the Clinton email case. He was on the Trump-Russia collusion case. He worked at the FBI National Security Branch, one of the most secretive branches of the entire FBI that most people have never even heard of. And he worked directly under the General Counsel James Baker, the FBI's top lawyer. And he's also the guy who personally interviewed Papadopoulos. Low-level player, my ass. I have a question for you, Mr. Barrett. And I'm not done. I'll get back with more of this tomorrow. I just ran out of time. But here's a question for you, Mr. Barrett, until tomorrow. On April 26, 2016, Misfit told Papadopoulos about the so-called stolen emails that Russia had. But it wasn't until June 14th of 2016 that the DNC announced the breach of the theft. How is that possible? April 26th, Misfit is telling Papadopoulos about emails that no one was aware that were even hacked until almost 3 weeks later. Misfit is telling Papadopoulos about emails that were hacked 3 weeks before anyone knew about it. Mr. Barrett, why don't you look into that? And while you're looking into that, why don't you look into O'Connor's lures, Mr. Barrett? Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. Bye.